clean well blowing out in the deep Gulf of Mexico. We hadn't invested in the technology to know how to do that. So we're making recommendations about how to address this. First of all, we need a much better planning process. Do you realize that when the plans were developed and the impact statements written and about this drilling this well, the estimation of the risk of a major spill that would reach shore in the Gulf of Mexico was deemed to be zero. There was a spill response plan that named species that don't occur in the Gulf of Mexico. We have to do better than this. So spill response planning, we have some specific recommendations about the responsibility of government working with industry to do this in a more effective way. We need improved technology. As various ideas, schemes came in, some that worked, the super whale, and whatever that came in to try to contain the spill. We need to do much better than we've done in that pace. We need some investments. We need some investments that will be sustained, not just lost to the whims of attention. And so we're calling for dedicated revenues, commitments by Congress, and it doesn't make it that often for multi-year mandatory funding, but we think this is so important that it merits it. We recognize that the government can't have the expertise and the equipment, the capacity itself to cap a deep water blowout. Industry must bear that responsibility. And indeed, the industry has stepped up to the plate and proposed a number of approaches. The most prominent one is this Marine Well Containment Corporation, by which the industry is committed to standing up this infrastructure, this capability to do just that. But the government needs the right talent, the right awareness and oversight to be able to guide that effort and manage it. So, for example, we can no longer have the lack of ability of our government to very rapidly and quickly assess the amount of oil coming out of a blowout. This is important in terms of designing the right containment strategy, and we need to have that expertise. So together with government oversight and its improved capacity, the right science and engineering within the government, but also the industry's commitment to cap and contain a blowout in days rather than weeks to months, we think is essential. Now, let me just, the last topic, when I started this off, I wanted to make sure I wanted to get to Senator Graham's points, and so I was kind of following the notes. Let me just speak from my own head and heart. As I mentioned, I grew up in this area. I learned to love the marshes of coastal Louisiana. In fact, so much so that it convinced me this is what I wanted to do with my life. And I've spent my career in marine science. And I've obviously, in my lifetime, watched this beautiful environment be diminished greatly. As the wetlands have grown, dead zones have formed and created. We obviously have a situation here where, as bad and disastrous as an oil spill like this could have been, it would still pale by the damage that's been done year in, year out by the activities of humans that have degraded the system. The degradation of the system decreases its resilience to other kinds of assaults and impacts. It makes this area less capable of supporting this industry that this country so desperately needs. So we really need, our commission was united from the beginning to say part of this is not only redressing the problems and the impacts of this oil spill, but rebuilding that resilience and restoring the ecosystems of the Gulf Coast. We think that can be done in a number of ways. One is that we need a much better investment in our know-how, our science, technology. We need to make this the best study area in our country, if not the world, because it's so vitally important to us. We need to have the best modern tools, observing systems. We need to have this system wired so that we can observe what's going on, don't have to guess from drawing a few assumptions. And we need to begin thinking about how do we take this knowledge to manage this space, the marine space, and its resources more effectively. So we're calling for application of these concepts of marine spatial planning, observing systems, and so on as we go forward. But most importantly, And I think you're all aware of this, recommendations of Governor Mavis to the President, as well as issues the Louisiana delegation is proposing of dedication of the Clean Water Act penalties. These are penalties which are levied on the industry, on a responsible party, on a per barrel basis for the amount of oil spilled into the Gulf. So once that's determined and the degree of negligence is determined, it could be a rather significant amount of money. So we are joining others in providing rationale for dedicating 80% of the Clean Water Act penalties to coastal ecosystem restoration, not to all the other things that people might want to do with the funds, but to coastal ecosystem restoration to help rebuild the resilience of this system. Well, I think Francis and all of us were very impressed yesterday when we met with the President and his senior leadership, that they were very much on this. This is one of the areas that they think our report can be most helpful with, and we're going to continue to work with them to make sure that we can make this happen. This is a long-term challenge. It's really just a jump start. It's not the full amount of money that's needed, but our thought is that if we could use this tragedy, find it a silver lining, we can help move forward the long-term restoration of this great part of the United States. Thank you.
Thanks so much. We've decided, owing to the participation here, so we can get to as many of your questions and comments as possible, we're going to skip the break and go right to questions and comments. I'll just go over a couple of ideas real quickly while the microphones are being set up. If you have a question or a comment, go to one of the 3 microphones that are going to be set up in the room to do that. Please, so we can get to as many people as possible, keep your comment or question succinct to the point, and I will respectfully ask the same of our commissioners in their response so that we can get to as many of you as possible. Bear in mind that we're here to talk about what can be done to protect the waters, the wildlife, and the waters moving forward, so if you keep your questions and comments on that, it would be helpful. Finally, to our friends in the press, we are going to have a press conference beginning at 3 right after this, so if you would use that opportunity to ask your questions and let the public have this opportunity to ask theirs, we would be grateful. Okay, questions and comments from the floor.
Oh, you want to go first?
Yes, sir.
George Barris is President of the United Commercial Fishermen Association and Board Member of Louisiana Shrimp Association. Welcome to Louisiana. Thank you for what you've done. I want to commend you for coming in under budget and on time. After this commission folds, I think you ought to call Mr. Feinberg and offer you his services. We need a little help right there. Also want to commend you for dedicating it to 11 people that lost their lives. In all the arguments and everything about money, time, birds, and animals and everything, the worst part is the 11 families that lost. Every speech that I've done, I've been across the country promoting seafood, promote what we've done to protect our coast. I've always kept that in mind. So once again, I commend you for that. Does your report in any way recommend to the Coast Guard and the NOAA to quit using our money, because we pay them our tax dollars, to hide information? We were appalled by what they did. The Coast Guard under the BP was hiding information, hiding to the public, didn't want it to show. That's how Coast Guard. And then NOAA came up with several meetings applauding the use of dispersants. Okay? Does your report have anything about that, directing them to own up to what they did, or straighten up this inconsistency? If not, we need to go a little further. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll take a swing at try to answer, and then Francis will add her thoughts. And one of the things, first of all, one of the things that characterizes our report is honest directness. So I'll be honest and direct as best I can. We have heard many criticisms about how government responded and how they provided information. And in this report, there's a lot of criticism of our government, our federal government, our state government, about their response. But in aggregate, I think it's our view that our government, it took them a while to get it right, but actually responded quite well and did what they were supposed to. One of the things that we point out is that, especially in an incident like this of national significance, where there's so much attention, they can't be too forthcoming. They have to get information out and easily available to people. People, you know, they're trying to collect information to make some judgments and decisions on it, but people want to know. So we have some suggestions about being more transparent, making information available. On the issue of dispersants, we certainly realize the very intense feelings about dispersants and recognize why intuitively putting a chemical on to treat another chemical doesn't make sense to a lot of people. But the decision about dispersant use is a choice between two bad choices. And in general, the government, through a lot of activities of caution, basically use that to make those decisions. And it's our judgment that the use of dispersants, particularly well offshore and in the deep water, actually reduce the amount of oil that reached the surface and reached shore. And so it was a judgment call. The jury is out in terms of its full assessment about the effect on the deep Gulf of Mexico. But as of now, it looks like it was the right call to make, to use the dispersants to minimize the onshore impact and impact the valuable resources that would be otherwise affected.
Right, just one addition on that, and I think we need to move on because there's a long line, but we really looked at going forward. Obviously, the dispersant issue is an incredibly charged issue. We did reach the conclusion that Commissioner Bosch said. We also, strong recommendation to EPA that they continue to test dispersants going forward, that they have very specific recommendations on how they're used in space and time and volume, that none of those protocols were set up coming into this instance, which made it a very difficult kind of minute-to-minute decision about how to address that, and they have to be better prepared in the future. And if we could just move on,
as the oyster farm, okay, I lost all my small oysters, so the jury's out on whether dispersants is bad or not.
No, that's right, and that's why the recommendation is to continue to examine it very carefully. It's a very good point.
Thanks so much. Let's go to the center, and maybe we'll just have one respondent to each question or comment so we can get through as many as we can. Thank you.
Thank you for coming down. I'm Irene Abitoff, Executive Director of the Community Center St. Bernard. I attended the meeting at the Marriott, and I'm just wondering if there's anything in the more detailed report about how to affect the human side of this event. The GCC has not, at this point, been up to speed. There are many families, both as a result of the economic effects in our local area, in the fishing industry, the cottage industries, as well as the moratorium, that have been gravely affected by this, and they are not seeing any appreciable results to end that.
There is there's certainly a identification in the report that there were huge social, human, and economic consequences which were never anticipated, and that the oil spill, the Oil Pollution Act never anticipated. And that going forward, that has to be really taken into consideration. There's a recognition that there are health impacts that we're not prepared for, that health protocols need to be set up going forward, that there were significant brand issues, the brand of Gulf of Mexico products that was never anticipated that needs to be addressed going forward. So I think many of the issues that you're identifying, we do talk about it, we certainly recognize it, and we make recommendations that in the future there has to be better preparation in those areas.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Linda Hooper Bowie. I'm an ecologist from Louisiana State University, and I, among all the ecologists and people who worked in the Gulf area, our experiments were ruined by this event, but we went down and tried to go and try to measure the effects of the multi-stressors. And what was a challenge for us is access to the areas that we had been hundreds of times. And fortunately, I was given the platform in the New York Times in August, and I wrote an article. And I suggested in that article that we assemble a commission of scientists who are prepared for natural or technological disasters. And I was wondering if you guys have given any thought to that, so that we have areas where there are scientists, and I suggested in that article that this be run through the National Science Foundation, who turned in to be saviors with their emergency grants for people like me. But we still ended up with really serious access issues in order to measure the impacts accurately and independently.
Thank you. We actually have recommendations and observations precisely on that point. And we do know that, interestingly, of all the federal agencies that probably invested most in the science to help us understand the effects of this bill when it was taking place was the National Science Foundation. We recommend that the agencies have a better capacity to provide funding to scientists while the spill and the activities are going on, so we can assess them. And we also specifically address this issue of access, that within reason, of course, there needs to be access to study the areas in which we can really learn from what's going on. And furthermore, there's even a suggestion, a recommendation that part of this is that we have this capacity to bring together experts to function as in an advisory role where these things are going on.
And if you bring together the experts, I would ask that you listen to them. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay. My name is Jim Dellery. I'm a community activist. I want to begin by thanking the Commission because I know you all have worked hard even over the weekend. And Don, I do want to thank you because you've not forgotten your roots, Louisiana, in our rich land and our culture. But I have two avenues I wish we could continue with the Commission be on top of what you have said. One is getting us back into the Gulf. We need our jobs, we need our work, we need to continue what we've done well. We cannot be blamed, the people of Louisiana, for BP's decisions of oil, Halliburton, and Transocean. So please help us in that direction. But you were correct in the statement. The oil spill, I always told the press it was a battle. Coastal erosion is our war. So please, with the might that you have, the connections of the President, stick with us, if you will. Thank you.
My name is Ricky Ott. I'm a survivor of Exxon Valdez oil spill, and I just want to say this is all like deja vu. So two things, four things actually, really quickly. The dispersant so-called trade-off, that is the oil industry's frame of the issue. The real question should be, how do we clean up oil spills the best way possible? Not trade-off environment, deep water, near shore, but how do we do it best? Norway has a completely different approach. They rely on mechanical, that's why they have heavy-duty skimmers, booms, and we didn't, because we rely on dispersants. So it's the wrong frame. Don't let the industry capture the frame. Second thing is, Norway specifically does not use dispersants near populated areas because of potential human health impacts. And I'm afraid we have a situation developing along the coast. I believe 4 to 5 million people were potentially exposed to dangerous levels of oil and dispersants. 4 to 5 million people. There are health effects all over. 9/11 is back in the news because the same federal agencies that said there wasn't a problem back then are now saying, oh, well, maybe. Well, we don't have to wait 10 years here. We have Exxon Valdez experience. People get sick. So what are we going to do now to triage our sick people? And what are we going to do epidemiology study-wise?
Thank you very much.
Two more things really quickly. You're saying about double-hull tankers, and that's a great thing that came out of Exxon Valdez. That is not because Congress passed a law. That is because we got citizen oversight. The citizen oversight was on 4 attempts at the industry to dodge that under different presidents and different Congresses. Citizen oversight is critical down here. And the last thing is, nothing is going to change unless you hit the oil industry where it counts, in their pocketbook, by changing the liability and by making an example of a company and throwing them out, debarring them, getting them out. And British Petroleum has tons of problems. So let's make an example. The industry can self-police and clean up their own act.
Ricky, thanks very much. I think one of your points, or made in several of your comments, I think is important. We went in, I think, thinking, or maybe just assuming that we were operating at the highest standards. We found that we weren't. We found that, and your use of Norway, we looked at what goes on in the UK and Norway, it's different. We felt coming, and I think the report recommends, This is the United States. We should have the highest standards. We should be setting the standards. We're not. And I think that's a fundamental recommendation of the report. We ought to figure out how to do that and get at it.
Yes, sir.
Darrell Paul Ward. I spoke to Obama at Xavier University, and I spoke to the Vice President across the street at Marriott last month to say now's the time to build the Temple of the Lord in Jerusalem. But what I'm really trying to say is our natural resources is what we have to do to give new jobs and new education, air, wind, water, geothermal, waves, and tide. Is all new jobs and new life for everybody if we wake up and realize that there's new jobs and new opportunities for the whole world. Now, for the 11 children that died, I would like to say something. I would like to say, boom! You're dead and reborn in the name of the Messiah. Paul has spoken on natural resources. And let us wake up and realize the natural resources are going to save us. It's going to give jobs and education to everybody. It's going to make everybody work together as a team. My garden of Eden is seeds. If I plant a garden on the interstate, if you see it, if it looks like the garden, you're going to know that you're in the garden. So help me plant my seeds, and you will know that you are there. Thank you very much. Amen and amen.
Andrew Baker, Lake Pontchartrain Basin Foundation. I wonder if you have any insight into how the time frame is going to be for information coming out of the NERDA process. It's been kind of frustrating for all of us here on the ground that the pace of information coming out has been rather slow. I understand that there is a legal framework for this, but do you have any insight into how long full information is going to be?
We feel the same way. we were able to get any real information about where they are under the assessment. We understand these things take time, but I think the public demands some urgency in assessing these effects. On the other hand, I have to say, some of these assessments are not simple or straightforward. This is a deep water spill. There are effects well out in the Gulf of Mexico that are very difficult to assess. Even those dead bodies that we can actually count, it's difficult to understand the consequence of killing X number of sea turtles to the whole population. So we recognize that it's a difficult challenge, but we have in our report recommendations about how to accomplish this and do it in a professional and organized way, but do it more rapidly than this spill. Actually, there are spills that took place after Katrina here that still don't have natural resources damage assessment completed for us.
Thanks so much. In the middle, ma'am.
Hi, Robin Young from Orange Beach, Alabama, Guardians of the Gulf. I want to thank you for your hard work. We've met with you numerous times, both here in New Orleans and in Washington. I have two questions. As I read about the health impacts and the recommendations, they seem to be extremely vague. Being that me and my counterparts provided you and your researchers with tons of scientific data in relation to the illnesses, the health impacts on the residents and the workers, I really see no sense of urgency here. Is there a sense of urgency more than the mental health? I mean, the mental health people have arrived in my area, but that's not helping the people that don't have insurance and are unable to get medical care for the illnesses from breathing on this. So where is a sense of urgency on that? Is there anything being put in place? Is anybody talking about somebody getting on the ground now with a team of doctors?
That's a good question. We are, of course, we're not part of government, so we can't do these things for you. We did observe, however, the nature of the problem, and that there's been inadequate assessment of health effects, both mental and physical health effects, and that in future spills, this needs to be rectified. And we also make the recommendations that we really need to fast forward these various epidemiological studies that are underway to better understand the risks that so many people are concerned about, not only people who are concerned about patients, but
take me off.
nothing other than living in the areas that we're in.
So what can we do as NGOs to help you facilitate that a little bit faster? I've got teams of doctors that want to come into our areas and help, but of course there's a matter of funding. So what can we do now? I can't wait 5 years. I can't wait 10 years. My own health is deteriorating to the point where I'm really getting frightened right now. So
well, I think that,
what can we do?
I think the main thing is to go to elected officials. I mean, they're the ones who have the ability. We are making recommendations. They're not. We've certainly heard what you said. We do have health recommendations. Certainly, health was not anticipated in the national response. That's what we looked at, and I think it's a very, very serious issue. We've heard from scores of people who have serious concerns. We are not in a position to actually make the implementation of these things, and that's what government's role is. So, I mean, I share your frustration in that, but I don't have an easy answer for you.
Okay, and this is the last part, and it's very quick. You've got the provision of appropriate protective gear for the cleanup workers. Do you realize that right now the guys that are still out there cleaning up don't have the right protective gear? They still don't have respirators. They still don't have the rest of the stuff. I get calls from them daily. They're sick. They're going to the doctor. They're incurring these huge bills. And, I mean, it's just the most hopeless situation, and nothing's being done. So what can we do there?
Yeah, that's the recommendations there.
Thanks so much.
I appreciate that.
Kendra.
Hi, I'm Kendra Arneson with Coastal Heritage Society of Louisiana. I'm the wife of a local commercial fisherman. I have 2 small children, and I live in Venice. So I'm very, very close to the Deepwater Horizon. For the last 8 months, I've dedicated 100% of my time to this. That being said, I have to reiterate how important the medical issues are here. I asked for medical mobile units to be brought in the area to do medical monitoring and possibly head on these problems as they came about, and it didn't get done other than the New York Children's Health Fund, an independent nonprofit organization, bringing in the pediatric medical mobile unit, which we now have in Blackman's Parish. So as you have put this report together, thank you so much, by the way. I'm totally impressed. It was not what I expected. I expected the worst thing to come out of you guys. I really did. So I'm completely, with everything else we've run into, you have to understand. So, but at any rate, I'm totally impressed, and I listened to you, Ms. Francis, over and over again on the internet talk, and I was really, really glad to be able to come here today to say that to you. One thing I think in the future that we do need to do is set up something like the All Pollution Act back in the 1990s with the medical end of it. I mean, we have to face this at some point in time, regardless how much they don't want to. The second thing I want to mention to you guys today is our brand. Of course, the wife of a local commercial fisherman, I'm very, very proud of what he does. We provide a food source for our country, and we've always prided ourselves in providing one of the best food sources on the globe. So our brand has been tainted in the public's view at this point to no end. I mean, for 3 months you see the oil gushing out in the Gulf. Of course, people do not have confidence in our brand. So I asked the EPA and the FDA to put together some type of device, some type of test, something that they can come out into the field. We only have a few docks open, and actually do some small sampling sporadically as the seafood comes in, or maybe at the production plants, somewhere to actually do some chemical testing, not a sniff test. Come on. A chemical test, so that we can put together some integrity back into our brand. And if we don't do that, then I just see our industry deteriorating more and more over the next few years. Another thing, the proper assessment has not been done on the total impact of this. Watching the Wildlife Department's assessment of the shrimp assessment, for instance, shrimp stock assessment every year. If we don't go in and do a 2.5, I've seen a 3 to 5 year thing that you mentioned, on the assessment to see just what the damage is, we may end up like the Alaska Valdez people 4 years later, the herring come back and drop to the floor of the ocean. I mean, that's what we may be looking at. So until we need to see a proper assessment done on this.
Thank you. This is a very important recommendation.
Thank you.
I think we were fortunate to have low expectations for the commissions.
Yes, sir, over here.
Tom Costanza with Catholic Charities here in Northside St. Lawrence. Thank you, Don. And we met before, and thank you for convening the community. I just want to continue to reiterate the human restoration side of this in all its aspects, mental health, primary health care, even the claims process. I noticed you did recognize that the claims process needed to be assessed, but I was a little concerned that I thought I read it was only going to be assessed after all claims were paid out. we're right in the middle of a crisis with the facility claims process, as you can see in the paper the last couple of days. So I just got word today that there will be a Senate hearing on the BP claims process and on all social services. So I'd like to be able to reread the report and make sure when we go to the Senate that there's clear regulations and guidelines from this report that we can take to the Senate to take some action.
Great, I appreciate your comments, Tom. I hope you can give us some indulgence in the fact that we had such a broad array of issues to address. And on the claims issue, other than comment on the appropriateness of having that claims in advance and the commitment, we really couldn't evaluate how effective or ineffective that process was. And so we don't really go into the details about that. We understand the great concerns. We've heard it in meeting with some parish officials today. But having said that, the fact that our government, our president, frankly, was able to get that major commitment of funding from BP up front while this issue was still going on, we think was a major step forward. Now, exactly how it's administered is another matter, but at least we have that.
Thank you.
Yeah, just to kind of reiterate on what you were saying, just because it's fresh in my mind. We shouldn't feel like it was lucky to get that from BP because we allow them to come and, in our Gulf. So it's like not like we were lucky to get that money. And thank you guys really for what you're doing. And I'm trying to jump on you, really not. Talking about health effects, it's going to, the one thing the president said at the beginning of this that keeps coming in my mind was unprecedented. Okay, I can't even spell the word. Okay, but I've learned every corner I get around something new is popping up, and to not have the health effects on that act is unbelievable to me. I'm an American citizen, and that's how they were looking out for us. I mean, that's kind of like, come on, Jesus. We need to look into it big time, because people also call me crying and dying. I see it. It's here. We need to get doctors with the money, whoever's money, BP's money, whoever's money needs to come. They need to see some people, some doctors, do some blood work. Because I have my own, okay, and it ain't good.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Robin Barnes from Greater New Orleans, and we've been tracking the economic impact of the oil spill, both the impact of the oil spill on the fisheries as well as the impact of the moratorium on the community. And it goes without saying that we rely on these industries for jobs, livelihoods, and I wanted to comment on some of the opportunity I saw in your report to create new industry and create some new jobs, particularly around creating technology for oil spill cleanup and infrastructure for that, and the extent to which that technology could be housed here on the Gulf, and the extent to which our local workers and businesses could be employed as we bring that industry up, I think would be very beneficial. We have a track record now of employing fishermen, for example, to do cleanup. And we just need to make sure that as we are engaged in these activities, that we're giving local people jobs and local businesses contracts and activities.
Great suggestion, thank you.
Yeah, two ways that I'm not impressed with this commission findings, and maybe you covered it in your document and just haven't spoken about it, is the confusion over just who is in charge, BP or the government, in terms of the cleanup. Many times we heard the Coast Guard speak as though they were speaking for BP and not the people, especially when it comes to the spraying of dispersant, which many people report on the Gulf Coast that it may still be occurring. The other issue is the health effects. When you say the trade-off, you're essentially saying that it's okay to trade off the health of the people for a convenient way. That's possible, and we know that one company, Nowco, made a bundle of money off of the sale of Core Exit, and that the people on the board of directors of Nowco are people from industries that have a lot of power in this world, including Monsanto. So that's just not good enough for us. We demand better. The issue is ongoing. People are getting sick and dying. And frankly, we need some urgency, and we need a little bit of lobbying on our behalf. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. Just on your first point, we actually did spend a significant amount of time talking about the issue of it not being clear who was in charge. And there is a recommendation that a spill of national significance, that it's clear that the federal government is in charge, even though the responsible party has to carry it out. Thad Allen was actually the most eloquent on that point in our hearings, so I think there we did address it. And then I also appreciate your comments on health issues. It's important.
I've been asked to say that the commissioners are trying very hard to get through those of you who are standing at your mics. If we can be really quick, we might be able to do it. Thanks so much.
Robert M.R.A. Sullivan of the First Unitarian Church of New Orleans. We take the position that the food is not safe and neither are the waters until scientific studies have been done. And we're not impressed with what has been done. So we plan this year a series of forums in which we are going to try to educate the people of New Orleans about the doubtfulness of the waters and the seafood. But I really come right now to the microphone because I want to say that I am personally concerned about the deep water drilling. I've been reading studies of the deep water, the ground of the Gulf, the seabed of the Gulf, and it does not sound to me as though it's solid. I don't know any geology, but I think this has to be looked at by whoever wants to start granting permits to drill in the deep Gulf. If it's fractured already, it seems to me it's terribly dangerous. Thank you.
Just a brief comment. The point about the deep Gulf of Mexico at the bottom, you know, people think of the fact that it's the water depth that's so challenging. That's indeed challenging, but the issue is that as industry's gone into deeper water, the geology has changed. It's different, and it's a geology that they've got less experience in, and provides a number of risks with respect to the high pressures that exist there. So we have some recommendations in our report about the special kinds of assessments in these high-risk environments that have to take place in order to get permitted to develop those resources.
Yeah, my name is James A. Miller, a.k.a. Catfish. I've been a fisherman since I've been 4 years old. Disappointed you people sitting up there saying it's okay for that 905 to disperse to be in our water out there for a trade-off. I don't know who's lining your pocket every day with money, but I'm disappointed that you would sit up there and say that in front of me. Because the reason why, people, I work for the VU program. Terribly sick. $360,000 worth of hospital bills. And you just sit up there and told this lady you don't know who's in charge or our future health care, and you don't know when it's going to come. I might not survive for another 5 years from cancer or them benzene gas I've been sniffing. People, I'm so upset. I'm shaking in my limbs right now here talking to you. I've watched millions of dragonflies where I live in Biloxi, Mississippi, on the beach dead. I've watched 52 turtles dead in the water. I've watched dolphins, croakers, ground mullet, speckled trout, pelicans. In my water where I worked at all my life. Trade-off. How can you sit up there and say trade-off? Are you that Obama conspiracy too? With all the government? Come on, people. This is our lives. This is our future. If you sit right here and keep lying to us like Feinberg, BP, Obama, we're going to die. Just like this lady said, 5 million people has been affected and don't even know it slipped underneath their door cracks while they was sleeping. Our beaches. They embalmed us with it. Come on, people. Where's our health care? Please, in your packet, in that book, where is my health care? I worked 60 days on the front line for VOP, whatever, BP out here. You people today can't. I've went to my local officials. I've been to Haley Barber, my so-called governor, that sold me out because he's getting revenue from BP, Chevron, Exxon. I mean, it's terrible. You people can think this is a trade-off. You are traitors up there to me. This is why people get upset in America. We pay taxes. We believe in ourselves. I'm a fisherman. I've killed many animals with my nets. But you need to come on my boat and see what it killed. And then you wouldn't sit up there and say, man, we just made a trade-off. It's that simple. It's not. I'm sick today. Nobody wants to take care of me. I don't have no insurance. I'm a poor-ass fisherman. Who's going to pay my $363 worth of hospital bills? You ain't giving me no answer to that. I'm so mad at this right now. I need to sit down and cool off. Because you people need to understand, my life's not a trade-off. I got a heart that beats just like yours. I got feelings. And you upset me today by telling me that my health, because people wants to trade off to make dollars. Somebody's lining y'all's pocketbooks, because this is a conspiracy. And you people can sit here and hide this all y'all want in your life. But when we all start dropping dead from the Florida state line to Grand Isle, Louisiana, wow, you're going to say, come on, man, get off the ground. We can't. Because we've been poisoned by the dispersants that you people said it's a trade-off. Love y'all. Peace, brother. Yeah. Good job. It's a trade-off.
I don't know if you remember me. I came in front of you during the oil spill commission here in New Orleans.
Yeah, babes. Love you.
Well,
trade my health for oil.
The deal is, I got to talk to you about something differently today, because before I was talking to you about my house, but I have to mirror what all these other people are saying. Today I'm talking to you about my life. The truth of the matter is my ethylbenzene levels are 2.5 times the 95th percentile, and there's a very good chance now that I won't get to see my grandbaby. Okay, now, I know that Catfish might be a little upset. The people here are a little upset.
Thanks.
But the deal is that you said as part of it that you want to improve the country's ability to respond to spills. And I am a part of the country. I am the ecosystem. I'm a part of the whole everything. And so what I'm asking you to do now, if possible, to amend that, because we have got to get some health care. I have seen small children with lesions all over their body. We are very, very ill. And dead is dead. So it really doesn't matter if the media comes back, I notice they're all gone, and they pay attention to us, or if the president hears us, or somebody finds the governor, he's on his book trail, or BP goes bankrupt, paying to help us out, or Feinberg goes home, please take Feinberg home. He's paid 400, there's been 400 health claims. He's paid 50 of them, that's less than 10%. What that means is GCCF is not going to pick up our health. We were counting on you. We were counting on you to put that in the report. If the oil workers and the fishermen and the crabbers get to feed their babies and maybe have a good Christmas next year, or if we can stop the soil from slipping into the sea, thank you for that. Or if you give billions to the BOEMR, dead is dead. It's dead. You understand? So I'm asking you today, yesterday my friend asked Feinberg to come and talk to us about health care. And I know your job's probably already done, but I'd like to hire you if you don't mind. And God knows I can't pay you nothing. But I need your heart, and I need your voice, and I need you to come to that table. And I need you to insist that if Feinberg and anybody else that needs to be in on that conversation comes too. And I'm asking you that today. And I would like you to say yes to me today. Why you look at me and please say yes, you'll come to my table.
Trade off.
Yes. And I think also, these health issues, I pledge that
people
we will
for
take those back and tell them because
thank you.
That's the best thing to do. That's the most we're hearing what you're saying, I promise you.
Please.
Thanks so much for all your eloquence. I know the commissioners are on a tight time frame, and I apologize, but we're going to have to take one more question. I want to thank everybody for the tenor and the tone and the content of these questions and comments. I know I speak for the commissioners in saying that. So,
go ahead, buddy.
Well, first I want to thank y'all for letting me play my song last time. I got another song for Dr. John recorded. I have it on my YouTube. Okay.
I have it on my YouTube.
Whether it's Kendra or Cherie or Catfish, the people of the Gulf Coast have really come together. And of course we have our differences politically and all that. But during the time of this spill, we were all united in saving, whether it was the wetlands or whatever, What scared us the most is we've been to all these different things. We went to the Clean Golf Conference in Florida.
Tampa.
And this plan they allegedly have with these 2 super tankers that sit on top of the BOP, it's not for the same spill. It won't take care of what happened here. So if the integrity of that well is not there on the top, then we're going to be waiting another 6 months until this stops. So today we're not any safer than we were. I hate getting this pissed off, but we're not any safer. And the dispersants, they had 18 other dispersants they could have used. It's illegal almost everywhere in the world. But because Nalco and Exxon make it, big oil, they're going to win the day. And all my friends work offshore. They're pissed off at me for doing this, but human life is more important than the profits of these companies. And I want to just talk to you because I know you care.
It's not.
And I said that
Human
before,
life
now it's on the record, but
I don't have to sit down.
I had a few more things to say.
We still have oil coming in.
CJ.
Well,
So we all know each other. We've been fighting this fight since the start. And it's just normal people. There's nobody with a PhD. There's nobody that's a lawyer.
I got a BS. I have a BS.
You do have a BS.
Thank you. Well,
But the big problem now is
I got it.
our friend Feinberg
Excuse me.
took over the claims process, and it was harder to get money from him. So we put all these cats in jeopardy. For 6 months, they haven't been able to pay their bills. Now they have nothing, and they're going to have to take option A or B, which means their health care is gone for the rest of their life. Your life is worth $5,000. You might never fish again. You might never have your life back, your culture, anything. But for $5,000 when you're desperate, you're going to take it.
That's an insult.
Your boat another month.
It's an insult, though. I mean, it's an insult. What if somebody told you your life was worth 500? I mean,
Anyway,
5,000.
I'm going to wrap this up.
You know what I mean?
Thank y'all for being here, first of all.
Thank you.
We got a coalition of
For
great
sure.
people that started